Oh, hey there, friend. It's Brenna Paxton, your guide to astral and earthly travel, and also just your fellow alien on Earth trying to figure things out. So, I feel incredibly called to open myself up to you. I can feel my soul family so strongly um, in the astral plane. Like I can feel it. I can feel myself calling you in. I can feel you calling me in, all of us in together. It's finally time that we can all really reconnect. And because of that, I just feel this incredible need to hang out with you. To hang out with those people that resonate um, not just with me, but like with the vibe that I am totally riding, this wave that I am on. I want to find the other people who are on that same wave. And I know you're there. So I'm calling you in. And I feel so compelled to just talk freely and openly about my own personal path and the practice of being a human and how I've gone about it throughout my life and how I go about it every day. So, the thing that I felt really inspired to share with you all today came from the fact that I was just journaling and writing like I do constantly. I write so much. It's either writing down ideas, taking notes on dreams I had, visions that came to me, journaling about my emotions, my feelings, just wherever I'm at in my journey of healing. And throughout all of that, as I write, I always end up connecting to this higher energy that really puts me into this meditative state that allows me, for me, it feels like it comes down from source, down from the cosmos, and I can feel it just like land or enter into my crown chakra as though it's a portal. And it like lands in the top of my head and then like sinks down through my body, and my brain feels like this translator that like takes whatever gets put down into my crown chakra and it just flows out of me. And I usually type while my eyes are closed, and I just like type so much of whatever it is that's coming through. And it's so amazing how sometimes it comes through me as visions, things that I can really see, and then I just write down all of the details of it as though I'm like trying to describe a painting that I'm looking at or describe a movie, really, because sometimes it's in action. And then sometimes it comes through as a really deep feeling and understanding. And those feelings I then try to communicate through words. And then sometimes, which is actually very often, I just get entire words, entire sentences, paragraphs on paragraphs of guidance or wisdom or insight that I'm able to just transcribe down and really allow that to sink in. So this is like a process that I go through every day, all the time. It's why I write so much, is because it's what really kickstarts my intuitive flow. It connects me to source and to my most eternal self, and allows me to really like transcend whatever I have going on in the moment and view it from this really high, extra dimensional perspective, I suppose you could say. um, yes. Just love a warm cup of tea when it's cold outside. So that process of writing is something that kind of like developed over time for me, and I it's really what unlocked my ability to channel. Although I don't necessarily, it's not necessarily channeling like I'm not channeling other guides or spirits all the time. I can do that, and I do that on a regular basis, but I do that with more intention. If I'm like calling in someone specifically that wants to come forward to deliver a message to me or to someone I'm working with or something. But for me, on a daily basis, when I'm writing, it's truly about connecting to source and my most eternal, highest self, because it's my personal practice, and it's what I go through and do in order to gain more clarity on my own life and to heal what I've gone through and to understand where I'm going. So I started calling these experiences, this time that I set aside to truly tap into that. I started calling them Astral Self Sessions, which I love. I don't know, that just came to me one day because I started developing kind of this, or no, developing isn't the right word for it, because what it is that was all revealed to me, right? And it's like just something that unfolded as I kept writing and time went on. And I started getting to know different parts of myself, and not just different parts of myself, different versions of myself, different pieces of myself that are in other timelines or in other dimensions or in just other possible realities. So by that I mean versions of myself when I was younger, versions of myself like younger in this lifetime, younger, a third grader, an 8-year-old, 17-year-old, 22-year-old, a 4-year-old, all of these little moments where something traumatic happened to me. And nowadays, it's hard for me to use the word traumatic and feel completely okay with it, because I want to honor that some people go through really, really traumatic experiences that are seriously intense on many, many levels. And I've gone through some things along those lines, but ultimately, trauma is inflicted upon us or happens to us or is a result of something that goes on that can happen really internally at many points throughout our lives. And every time there is one of these kind of traumas or like a shocks, it's like a part of ourself kind of breaks off and hides away out of wanting to protect itself, which is a good thing, because then you can go retrieve that piece of yourself rather than it being completely gone forever. Like, it's always there and you can go find it. And it's also something that can be transmuted and healed. It's like this little part of yourself that is so sad, goes and curls up in a corner in pain and in sadness and in fear or shame or guilt or whatever emotion is tied to that instance. And we have to go find those parts of ourselves and then ask them what they need and listen and do whatever it is that that part of ourself needs in order to reintegrate, in order to feel safe, in order to heal. And really what that is alchemy. It's transmuting one thing into another. It's turning it into opalescent white rainbow gold. That's the color I see everything in. It's very holographic, hard to describe. But this is just a process that has arisen naturally through my 28 and a half plus some years of existence. I sound like a toddler, like needing to tell you exactly how old I am right now. Regardless, over that whole period of time, such a beautiful process has come out of it, which, as I said, I refer to as the astral self sessions. And the astral self I see as being an overarching way to describe my most integrated embodied self that exists at many different dimensions and levels. So I focus on 4 key aspects of my astral self. One is my most eternal self. So I'm not using the word higher self here because we really have many different higher selves, in the sense that you can keep going up higher into different dimensions. And you could go higher, just a little bit higher than wherever you are now. And that's great. You could talk to that version of yourself. You could get wisdom or advice from that person. But ultimately, just being higher than where you're at now isn't necessarily like the highest, or like the version of you most connected to source. So that version of you that is the highest and as high up as possible, I refer to as your eternal self. And shout out to my bro, Max Blackwell, because we had this conversation recently, and that's kind of when I started switching from saying higher self or highest self to eternal self, because that just fits so much more accurately. So thanks to him also for helping me come up with that. But your most eternal self is really connection to source, and it is like the most you color, hue, or flavor, however you want to think about it, the most you version of source. So it's not necessarily source, but it's like you as close to source as possible. So that's what I refer to as your eternal self, and that's one key component of the astral self sessions. The second is your Akashic self, and again, shout out to Max, because I had been calling that your past life self or something, and I like needed a better word to understand what I was actually talking about. And then after that conversation with Max, I was realizing that it makes way more sense to call it the Akashic self, because it's accessing those Akashic records. It's accessing the history of everything. It's accessing the many multi-faceted lives or experiences that you have had within this whole big grand scheme of things. And a note I want to mention about your past lives, or about this Akashic realm, is that I truly believe that there is a unity consciousness, there is oneness, there is source. And if we all come from source, and every single expression of any living being comes from source energy, then if you go all the way back up to all those dimensions and back into source, we really are all coming from the same thing. And if you're able to tap into that, you should really be able to tap into, even if we're not trying to, I think this is just something natural that we all can do, is we tap into that oneness consciousness, which allows us to experience life through anyone's perspective. Now, I'm not saying that I can just meditate and experience this person's over here life exactly as it is and understand it. No. But in terms of past lives, really any past life that I have had that past life memory that I've had that I have recalled, it feels so incredibly true to me. And like, yes, absolutely, this is a past life of mine. And the way that it lands in my head, again, like it lands into my body more as memories, and it's like an entire knowledge, like a zip drive. something that you need to unzip, a whole folder of information and details and facts about this life that I lived. And that feels very different than like a dream or just having an epiphany, like it is a version of an epiphany, but it definitely, you know, when it's a past life thing, when it's an Akashic thing. And while it is very true and unique and specific to me, I believe wholeheartedly that the reason those memories are returning to me in that moment is because it contains some crucial piece of knowledge or wisdom or healing that I need in order to continue on my journey of transformation. And that is so important because it's like it's delivering you this sacred wisdom from the infinite expanses of the universe, like, and from any lifetime and from any experience outside of what you're just doing right now in this moment. And that's an incredible way to heal and gain new insights and totally new perspectives on especially parts of your life that you have been kind of stuck on maybe, and you need like a total shakeup, a whole new back door into the situation that you didn't know existed. Like, so I find those memories, those past life memories, to be incredibly helpful and incredibly specific to the individual. But since oneness and that unity consciousness is a thing and is very real, and we all come from the same stuff, I do believe that you can kind of tap into any of these lives or experiences, lived experiences, and that any of those things could have been your life or someone else's. Because it's kind of like, I almost don't even see it as my past life anymore. I see them as a lived experience that someone learned from. And I'm a part of that someone. I'm a part of that energy of awareness, of being aware of your own existence. We all are that. We all come from that. So to say like, oh, this was my past life, well, yes, valid, I get it, accurate. It also could have been anyone's life, and it could be anyone's life, and it doesn't really matter. It's like an egoic thing to want to cling on to like the identity of, no, this is the past life that I lived, when the whole point of it is just to gain the wisdom from that experience. So who cares if it was your past life or just a really profound experience full of wisdom that you were able and gifted to tap into. You were gifted this experience and this wisdom, really. It's, I guess maybe the way you could say it is that it's like you're gifted the wisdom without having to actually go through the experience in real time. So that's awesome. That saves time. It helps you gather back up all of those different pieces of wisdom that you had gained and maybe forgotten. So I don't know. I'm still constantly unpacking my thoughts around past lives. I love whenever I get another download of a past life that I have had. You get what I mean, hopefully. Let me know if you have questions about that, though, or if I'm being confusing, and I'll clarify that more, because I do really believe in past lives, but I believe almost even beyond that idea of just like we are all a part of the same energy, and so we're constantly able to go in and out of all these multi-dimensional experiences. And I think one of the key points I really want to convey with this whole idea of astral self sessions, or like your astral self, is that time is not what you think it is. Right? And I know you know that, and if you are listening to me right now, you probably don't experience time in a linear way anyway, necessarily. But for me, time has never been linear, and really, I think it's one of the key components of understanding how to heal yourself and how to transform. Because when you understand that the past is not over, the past doesn't even really exist, and the future is constantly happening right now. And when you start playing in other dimensions, you realize that everything that you need to access your healing, access your potential for immense healing and transformation, those portals are available to you always and right now in this moment. And it doesn't matter if something happened 15 years ago or what's going to happen 10 years from now, because you can access those moments now. And the version of yourself that is the most integrated and embodied and healed exists now. Right now. It's just in another dimension. And you can bring that dimension down to this one if you so desire. So, getting back to these 4 aspects, it looks like I don't have a thumb. I do though. Getting back to these 4 aspects of the astral self. You have your eternal self, your Akashic self, as I was musing about with this like past life idea, and then your younger self and your future self. And what I mean by younger and future self, it's kind of funny because as I just said, they like don't really exist and they also exist at the same time. So your younger self, I consider to be like versions of yourself, like I was saying, when you're 2, 20, 10, whatever, those pieces of yourself that broke off to go protect themselves. Those are your younger self pieces that you have to like go back and find versions of yourself in order to help them, comfort them, make them feel safe so that they're able to reintegrate. And then your future self is more to me about tuning into the potential, like the field of potential that we're already in every moment, and seeing, like tuning into, calling forth the version of yourself 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, in this lifetime. Asterisk, it's like the version of yourself in the future as if you were continuing on this path right now. So it's this weird paradoxical thing where even the act of communicating with your future self changes your future, right? I love that. I love these weird things, the weird ways that life works. So I'm not necessarily saying that if you tap into your future self and have a conversation with her and ask her, what to do, ask her for advice. I do this all the time. I'm not necessarily saying that in 2 years' time, you will become exactly that person that you were communicating with, because it's impossible for you to, because it's already changed just in the act of talking to them. But simultaneously, that version of yourself in the future is closer to being integrated with their entire astral self and is closer to their eternal self and is a version of you that already exists, that is more evolved and farther down on the process of transformation than you are at this current moment. So you also, yes, will become that version of yourself. So it's like that paradox. Everything's paradox. I will say that over and over and over, but it is that weird paradox where you will become that person and you also won't. But it's incredibly insightful to call future versions of yourself forward in order to ask them for advice and figure out what path you are taking. So those are the 4 elements. Calling forth your eternal self, which I feel compelled to elaborate on slightly more, which is that the reason it's so beneficial to contact your eternal self and to really bring that energy back down into your body is so that you can remember your truth, like remember who you are truly in the highest form, in the most divine cosmic sense. And this is a crucial thing to do. Like, if we don't have the awareness of who we really are, it's hard to know what to do with yourself. Like, for me, I consider my eternal self to be like my North Star, my shining star, the star that guides me home. And I need that star in order to know where to go. I need to know what to follow. If I don't have a star to follow, then I'm just sitting here in the dark, wandering in circles. I'd much rather be in the dark walking towards a star, even if it's still scary and confusing and like, what? At least that star is there. And I know it will guide me. And so the more that you can tap into your eternal self and to connect to source, the more layers you can uncover of like who you really are, which is so beautiful. That's just, it's an honor to be able to experience that journey, which, you know, this whole like thing called living life on earth is like very bizarre. And part of my, I guess my favorite part of it, one of my favorite parts of it, is the opportunity to discover new layers of my truth, to have that sink in more deeply. It's always so beautiful when that reintegrates. That's the most satisfying feeling. So yeah, your eternal self can really guide you, help you remember who you are, help you awaken to where you've been programmed by society, what isn't true to who you are. So many things, so much wisdom is there. So that to me is really, really key. And then the other one that has been the most pivotal for me, I mean, all of it together is pivotal, but pairing really contacting your eternal self and then using that wisdom of who you are from your eternal self to then go back to younger versions of yourself in this lifetime where you had been hurt or felt pain. You can use the wisdom you gain from your eternal self to then go meet your younger self in a new frame of mind, a new sense of knowing, a new, more aligned, more compassionate view of yourself, perspective on yourself. That's what I want to say, is that like it gives you this higher perspective to give things more context and to make things that seemed very, very painful feel less painful. Or not that they will feel less painful, but that it's easier to understand why it's okay to heal from that pain when you have greater context that your eternal self provides. So that's so pivotal. And then, your younger self and gathering up all the pieces of yourself that have been hurt and not being afraid to say, I'm here for you and I want to listen to you and you're safe with me. Sometimes that's all your younger self needs. Because so often in those moments we feel isolated and alone and like no one understands us. So just to show up as a version of yourself, to hang out with your younger self and say, I'm here for you and I understand you and I know how magical you are and how beautiful you are and how full of wisdom and love you are. Sometimes that's all we need to heal. Sometimes a little bit more is required, and that's great. That's fine, you know, like, it's a beautiful process. And it's something I'm really excited to talk to you about more. So let me know if you have any thoughts or questions or anything about this, because this has been the most pivotal tool for me in transforming my life. And then, you know, like, you can get really trippy with it. You can get kind of crazy. Like, I'll have my eternal self or future self, depending on who feels appropriate at the moment, to I'll invite them to come speak to my younger self that needs healing. So, you know, it's like, if you are in a position now where you're struggling, and you're struggling because of something that might have happened in the past that you're still trying to heal, and it's hard to figure out how to heal it, you don't have to be the one to go do that work. You can call your eternal self in and have her help you out and have her comfort your younger self. Oh, isn't that beautiful? Life is amazing. Yeah. Wow. Thanks for letting me share that with you. Thanks for letting me muse with you here while I'm cuddled up on the couch. I think that's all I have to say about this for now. That's what felt like coming through. So let me know what you think, and I'll see you tomorrow. Love you.